Hello and welcome to Prairie Pulse. Joining today is Senator-elect Heidi Heitkamp. Thanks for joining us
Well,
today.
thanks so much for having me.
You're having fun with that open there, weren't you?
I was.
So, as we get started today, I know most viewers are going to know you, but tell the folks your background, where you're from, and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I grew up south of Fargo, little town called Mantador. I always tell people when I was born, my mother had 4 children, the oldest was 2, and there were no twins. True story. And our family was 1/10 the population. And so, we grew up in a small town, and a lot of folks saw it, saw our love and our affection for Matador, but I know that they shared that same love and affection for the places that they came from, and I think it has a lot to do with who we are and what we believe, where we come from. So I'm proud of being from Matador, North Dakota.
Well, sure. What got you involved in politics?
It was more not politics as much as public policy, taking a look at the things that you believe in and the role that public policy plays in changing things, or at least moving the country forward. And so always involved in public policy. Went to work for Kent Conrad when I was in my early years, served as his lawyer and his chief counsel for a number of years, and then when Kent left for the United States Senate, Governor Sinner appointed me tax commissioner. But 2 years before that, I actually ran my first statewide race for state auditor at the ripe old age of 28, mainly by getting kicked in the rear by Kent Conrad and told to get out there and become involved in politics in a way that I had never anticipated that I would. So blame Kent. All of the folks who say, why do we have her, just blame Kent Conrad.
Well, there's a lot we're going to cover today. First question is, talk about the race some. How did you defeat Representative Berg? A lot of money was spent, a lot of ads were run. Can you talk some about that?
Yeah, I don't look at it so much as defeating Representative Berg as I do how did we win enough votes from North Dakotans, and enough people were motivated to come out and vote for Heidi Heitkamp. What we'd like to think is that our message of, look, it is time to put partisanship aside. It is time to quit being Democrats and Republicans and start being Americans. And I think that people knew me. A lot of people say, well, you were likable, and I like to think I'm likable, but I think mainly people knew me from years of public service, and they knew that I usually meant what I said. And I think they believe that I really am motivated, and it's a high priority to get this country moving again and get rid of partisanship. And I think in the end, it was that message that resonated with people, and the fact that people know that I just love North Dakota and that I will always put North Dakota's interests first.
Yeah, but with that said, the Fargo Forum had you behind by 10 points, yet your folks said it was much closer than that. And obviously, what did you know that they didn't?
Well, we knew that you have to hire a polling firm that actually has done political polling. The Fargo Forum poll was done by a polling firm that doesn't have any background at all in political polling, much less a background in political polling in North Dakota. And with all due respect to the Fargo Forum, I think we said it at the time, it was polling malpractice when they relied on the poll during the primary, and it was polling malpractice when they relied on the same firm. That race was never a 10-point race. It bounced back and forth between 1 or 2 points, but it was never a 10-point race, and we knew that. The problem with a poll like the Fargo Forum poll is it then becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and you've got to push back against it. And I think the fact that the poll came out with 10 points put it in the range of, I don't believe that. Because people were talking to their friends and neighbors, and people that they had never thought would ever vote for a Democrat were voting for Heidi Heitkamp. So they had a sense of that's not reality. And so I don't know that the poll hurt us as much as what we thought it might in the beginning.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the transition. I understand you've already been out in D.C., and so what's been going on?
Well, I haven't really spent a lot of time in D.C. I think I'll be moved out of my little cubby down there into some transitional offices before I've even sat at that desk. What I've mainly tried to do in the transition is not spend time in D.C., but spend time in North Dakota. And I kind of jokingly say I'm talking to people who didn't really want to talk to me before the election about what their interests are and what their concerns are, because the message I want to send is, yes, you know, these elections, you're Democrats and Republicans when you run, but when you serve as a North Dakotan and you serve as an American. Let's talk to all of the people of North Dakota, find out what their interests and their concerns are, and let's move forward from there. So I've really spent almost all of my time in North Dakota traveling the state. You know, been on a drilling rig with Marathon. That they've been absolutely wonderful in getting me up to speed. Spent a lot of time in the energy industry when I was Attorney General and Tax Commissioner, working with the industry. But I have a little gap in knowledge, and I'm getting caught up quickly. And so, you know, talking about to hospitals and healthcare providers, what are their concerns with the healthcare law? Where do we have problems going forward, and just really trying to get educated and get more detail on my understanding of North Dakota's problems.
Mm-hmm. How about the transition for your husband and family? How's that going to be?
Well, my husband loves his patients, and we're very gratified by the fact that even though Mandan has been historically voted Republican, they actually voted, the city of Mandan actually voted for me. And I think a lot of that had to do with my husband and his practice for years. We know a lot of, that's our community, that's our home. And he's going to be still practicing medicine right there in the clinic that he's always been in, and my children are both grown. And so, you know, this is a little easier than it would have been maybe 12 years ago.
Okay, sure. Well, you're going to be working closely with Senator Hoeven and, of course, newly elected Kevin Cramer as the representative. Can you talk about the relationship you have with each of those individuals right now?
Well, John and I go back a long way. You know, basically, I was on the Industrial Commission that hired John Hoeven to run the Bank of North Dakota. And so we worked for 8 years together, looking at North Dakota's economic interest, you know, examining what we could do that was better. We didn't always agree, but we always knew when we disagreed. And, you know, I'm so comfortable with Senator Hoeven. I think he tends more towards the moderate middle. I think that he is somebody that will form that base of people who are willing to sit down, roll up their sleeves, and get problems done. He's actually run something. I always kind of laugh because in the Senate, you know, if all you've done is legislate your entire life, you know, I wouldn't want my colleagues to see this, but you kind of wonder, have you ever had to make decisions that have immediate impact? And John Hoeven's someone who has. And so he's run his own bank, he's run the Bank of North Dakota, he's run the state of North Dakota. I think he gets that you don't always get your way, but if you form coalitions. And so I look really very forward to sitting down and prioritizing the needs of North Dakota and working with Senator Hoeven. I do not know Kevin Cramer as well. And so that's going to have to be a relationship that, you know, obviously we've known each other for a lot of years, but I've never worked with him the way I've worked with Senator Hoeven. So we're going to have to sit down and kind of build those relationships that are essential with Congressman Cramer if we're both going to serve North Dakota.
Okay. Well, let's talk maybe a little bit more specifics. Once you're sworn in, what will be your first order of business?
Always, I said this every place, is to look around the Senate and look to forming relationships, particularly the ones that can be beneficial across party lines, to introduce myself, to do the things that you do when you first get a job. You walk around and you start learning and introducing yourself to the people you're going to be working with. And so that's the first order of business. You know, and then obviously taking a look at whatever is the top priorities congressionally of the day. But, you know, to me, the trick will be, or not trick, but the obligation and my first steps will be building relationships.
Okay. And committee assignments, I believe you've already received those, but can you talk about those?
Well, I'm very happy with several of them, including agriculture, which I said I don't think you can represent North Dakota without being on the Agriculture Committee. I've said that over and over during the campaign, and I meant it, and so I'm gratified. There's some really interesting things that after we get over the Farm Bill, which I don't think we're going to get a Farm Bill in the lame duck, so that'll be job one in terms of public policy for me. But there's some really interesting developments in terms of value-added agriculture that doesn't involve food that the Ag Committee has jurisdiction over. Want to continue to have those discussions because, you know, when you look at North Dakota and you look at North Dakota's economy, it is commodity driven. And we've always known that the best way to stabilize our economy is to do new wealth creation, do that next level at where you add value to our commodity products. I talked a lot about building refineries in North Dakota. So that's value added from our oil and gas. Talked a lot about, the next generation of value added in agriculture, beyond fuel and food. What kind of polymers, and NDSU is doing a great job here, courtesy of Byron Dorgan, who was able to secure funding for their research center. They're doing some great research here that I think we should transition to to actual implementation in North Dakota. So I'm excited about agriculture, excited about banking actually. I kind of first went banking and then I went, no, it really does fit, given the challenges that small community banks and credit unions have right now. Indian affairs, a big personal issue of mine, and I think should be an issue of great concern to all of North Dakotans, that everyone in our state is doing well and we're fulfilling our treaty obligations and acting in a respectful government-to-government relationship. And then the one that really kind of surprised me was Homeland Security, although after I kind of got over the really, I went, this is a perfect fit for me because of my background in law enforcement. It's great because I'm deeply concerned about recovery up in Minot from the flood, and we've been a state that's been heavily in a long-term relationship with FEMA, and this puts me in a position to continue those relationships and hopefully do a little bit better for the people up in Minot, which was one of those lessons learned during the campaign.
Sure. Well, let's change it a little bit. Tea Party movement just a few years ago happened, but now Democrats picked up seats in the Senate. President Obama actually ended up winning by a larger margin than many expected. What does that sort of say about the state of the country right now?
I think it says something about politics. I'm not sure it says much about the state of the country, because before the election, if you said, what do you want from your government? They would say two things. We want you all to quit acting like your children and start getting along, and we want results. And I don't think that changed with this election. I think people made a choice. What's the best way to get results? You also have to remember that even though you say, Obama won by a bigger margin, that's an electoral college margin. When you look at the popular vote, it was very close. And so no one should expect that they have a mandate on good ideas. But everybody should be coming to the table with the idea that I'm going to have to give a little. And I've been honestly disappointed in the lame duck, because I thought for sure that these things would be a lot easier. And people are clinging to those old ideas, but also Speaker Boehner still has the same Congress that he had in 2010. So we'll see if he's able to transition, and actually move enough to I think address the issues that should be addressed in the fiscal cliff. A point of disappointment with Speaker Boehner is he promised that he would move a farm bill. That's not going to happen, I don't think. And so we'll have to begin that process anew and hopefully be able to react very quickly in the new Congress, because we've got people making very expensive decisions today about investments on their farm, and they need to have a safety net, and they need to know what that's going to look like.
Well, there's two or three things. Fiscal cliff, you mentioned that here. As we tape this, and obviously this is going to be about a week old, so things could change. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, it doesn't look like there's a solution in the immediate future. Things were looking good for a little while, and so what are your thoughts there? A little more.
Well, I'm always someone who doesn't pay that much attention to the top lines in the media, and that's no diss. It's just that you aren't always privy to what actually is going on. And so I'd like to believe, and I have no independent knowledge of this, that there is actually very serious negotiations going on. I think that the real challenge here is whether Speaker Boehner has enough persuasion power with his own caucus to actually move anything. And I think that's the concern on the other side, that you're shadowboxing. You're negotiating against yourself, because when someone doesn't necessarily have the authority to speak for the majority of their caucus, that creates an uncertain kind of position. And you saw this in past negotiations on fiscal issues. I think you're seeing it again today. And I think Speaker Boehner is negotiating with all good faith. I don't disagree that he personally is negotiating, but I think his tougher negotiations aren't with the president. I think his tougher negotiations are with his own caucus, and I wish him well in being able to move his caucus to a position of compromise so that we can move forward. This is another place where you just are amazed that it's like they don't live in the real world. It's like it doesn't matter what's going to happen to the markets. It doesn't matter what's going to happen to businesses who on January 1 need to know the new tax rates so they can do their payroll. There's all these real world things that you know about if you've run something that you don't necessarily know about if you haven't ever run something.
Well, what about entitlement reform? Or will you want to protect Social Security and Medicare?
Absolutely. It was a big part of the campaign. I do not believe that the cost of living adjustment and the inflation indexes have any role in these negotiations for Social Security. I think long term we need to take a look at Medicare. I separate those two, and Medicare is something that I think we can continue to deliver guaranteed benefits. We can continue to do the things that we do in Medicare, but we can take a look at where we can save costs to reduce the cost and bend that arc, that inflation arc, in all health care, but particularly Medicare.
Okay. You mentioned the Farm Bill a couple of times here throughout, and you said you don't think in the lame duck anything's going to happen. So what's going to have to be done to bring it to the floor and get something passed with the new Congress?
Well, they're talking now about an extension. They've got a problem with milk prices, and that's been very prominently talked about, going back to some 1930s law on milk. I mean, and this is the consequences of an unwillingness to sit down and actually get it done. The Senate bill has real reform, $23 billion. I thought that $23 billion of real reform would have motivated them to do something in the lame duck. I think there's going to be, if you look at strictly sequestration, which is what we're facing January 1, the Farm Bill would take a $15 billion hit. So there's real reform in the Senate bill. The House bill has $35 billion. There's a place in between where I think we can get without hurting nutrition, without hurting the farm program, if people of good faith actually want to get it done. So what I'm hoping is that there will be, I don't hold out a lot of hope that there's going to be a Farm Bill by the end of the year, but that this will be top of the agenda when we come back, and when I'm sworn in, certainly the top of my legislative agenda will be a Farm Bill.
Okay. You talked about Senator Conrad, and what are some of your thoughts on Senator Conrad as he's retiring and what he's meant to the state?
Oh, it's too much to identify in the remaining minutes that we have here. Obviously the air bases, farm bills, infrastructure, flood recovery. I mean, Devil's Lake, you could just go around the state of North Dakota and you see Kent Conrad in every corner of the state of North Dakota. But the thing that I always say that nobody else says, because if you've worked for the man, you know this is true, he is the most tenacious man that I know. He is the most organized and visionary person that I know. I heard a story about him, and I want to tell this story because I think it is such a good role model for not just me, but a lot of people. Kent Conrad would wake up in the morning and write down a list of everything that he was going to do today. And you might think, well, get a haircut, have a committee meeting, whatever. No, at the top of that list was fix the fiscal problem of America. And if you don't remind yourself every day that you're there to do the big things, you'll never accomplish those big things. And that is such a great example for all of us in our life. Be kind today. If that's on the top of your list, think of how different things might be in society. And so he is the most planning person that I know. Just has that personal discipline, but he is the most tenacious person he never gives up. I mean, at times when we were working with the North Dakota legislature, I would say, well, that the conference committee met and they're going to the floor. He'd say, you go down there and you tell them, pull it back into the conference committee. He never gave up if he believed in the cause. And I think that kind of tenacity is the reason why he was so extraordinarily successful in the United States Senate. And it's a trait to emulate.
You said you worked for him. Understanding he was one of your mentors.
Absolutely. I mean, Kent is someone who literally, I mean, it's not an exaggeration to say I'm in political life today because of Kent Conrad. He orchestrated the draft when I ran in 1984. He encouraged me very early on to consider elective politics. And I think for so many young, and I do the same thing today, because for so many young people, they want to work in campaigns or they want to work in a congressional office, but they don't see themselves taking that next step into leadership. I mean, after our campaign, who can blame them? When you look at the kind of nasty ads and the money and all the things that go with it. And what I remind people is that service is an honor. One of the greatest honors in my life was being able to serve for 8 years as North Dakota Attorney General. I've now been given another opportunity to serve, and it is a great honor, it's a great responsibility, and I never forget how important it is to always remember this is about North Dakota, it's not about you. And if we approach public service that way, and if we tell young people, look, this is your opportunity to do things that you couldn't do as an individual for the people of North Dakota, and you should take that opportunity if you can.
Let's talk about the oil industry. You talked a lot about it in your campaign. You said you wanted to get staff on the ground in oil country and make sure improvements and infrastructure needs were being met. What are your plans in this area?
We're in the process of putting boots on the ground, and I think people will be pretty happy. The challenge in Williston actually is office space. We've been challenged by getting office space in Dickinson, which we're in that process. But ironically, it's like people in Washington, D.C. who have to approve these contracts are going, really, Dickinson? It's like, yeah, it's going to cost you that much a square foot in order to have a storefront in Williston or Dickinson, which we need, because we want people to know that we're part of that help that should be coming for infrastructure development. A big idea that I had was making sure that the oil wells that are federal leases actually are paying an in lieu property tax, because they're using the same amount of frac trucks. They're using the same amount of infrastructure. Their people need the same amount of police and fire support. And so, making that argument, and I think there's some allies, because of course I'm telling everybody about my great idea, all my new friends, and I'm getting some head bobbing. It might be a little challenging in this time of tighter budgets, but we're really hopeful that we're going to be able to make the case for additional contributions from federal leases for North Dakota infrastructure.
So do you think North Dakota's oil industry is moving at about the right speed, or does it need to slow down with environmental and small town concerns?
Well, you've already seen a lot of and I said this during the campaign because like I said, I have a fair amount of experience in oil and gas. These were leases that needed to be what you call perfected. So they needed to actually begin drilling in order to lock in the royalty amount. And so you had a lot of that pent up need to drill because of the leases. You're seeing now the drilling rigs actually come down. You're seeing maybe a slower pace. In fact, I just talked to someone today who said that their family is concerned about this slowing down. Part of that's driven a little bit by lower oil prices, but I think it's now there. You can exhale a little bit if you're an oil company because your leases are fairly new. You can. And it drove up the cost of drilling, and so we're going to reach a point at which the free enterprise system will determine it. But I think that the greater issues are how do we provide infrastructure and how do we not overbuild infrastructure in the West so that we have the appropriate amount of housing, the appropriate amount of police and fire for a long-term sustainable industry. At some point we're going to reach that point where it's not about drilling rigs, it's about maintaining the wells that we have out there.
Sure. You talked about refinery, and what is your view on the Keystone Pipeline project?
I've always been supportive of the Keystone Pipeline. I think the president will approve it. It is that tar sand development is going to get developed no matter what. And if you've studied this, you know that it's not the pipeline nearly as much as what it is. The tar sand development in Canada has created the real concern about that the environment, so they're using the pipeline as a way to stop tar sand. If you stop the pipeline in the United States of America, that tar sand oil is going to go to China. It's going to go west into the Vancouver ports. So let's just talk reality. This is an opportunity for the North America to become energy independent. This is the right way to move this oil. I think they're trying to take a look at ways in Nebraska where they can move it off the bulk of the Ogallala Aquifer and avoid the critical Sandhill area. What we're going to see is whether the governor approves those changes. They've just been through the comment period, Keystone has, and I think once that happens, I think you'll see the State Department issue the permits, but then that's me. I look at this not only maybe as somebody who's an advocate of building our domestic industry, but I also look at it as a lawyer, and I think that there's no impediment, no legal impediment to the president doing this.
Heidi, we're running out of time, so
sorry.
your key staff, and how can people get more information?
Well, those of you who have had a chance to work with Senator Conrad, I think we're going to be walking in, we'll get his phone numbers. And so, and his staff, and they may kill me, who are still manning the phones in the 4 offices, major offices, are still there. Give us a call at his staff numbers and they'll pass those messages along. And those offices and those numbers will be ours after the transition, after the handoff, the baton handoff, and we're ready to go.
Okay, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Well, that's all we have on Prairie Pulse this week, and as always, thanks for watching. Good job. Thank you very much. Obviously, we had to skip many questions.